Yeah,
Let's
that
not,
was me. So
let's not name names, Joe. We don't
it
need
was me.
We missed it.
we don't need to point fingers.
For some reason, when I logged in, it logged in me in twice. So I had to shut it down and
Ah,
go back in.
Oh, twice is more the fun.
Yeah. Then you'd hear me echoing. I'm not sure you want to hear my voice twice.
more the confusion for me. Uh, really keeping my fingers crossed that I'm not going to have problems with my Zoom feed this week.
Oh, your
So far,
picture's
so.
up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Pat is here. Pat, Gene's going to be a little late.
Okay.
So we'll get started and he'll join us probably in about 15 minutes.
All right. Sounds fine.
What do you think, Allison? We good?
Yeah, there's no one else in the waiting room right now. So
Okay. All right, then let's get started. Good evening. It is 6:30 p.m. on February 11th of 2026, and I hereby call this meeting of the Nahant Board of Selectmen to order. We have some opening comments and announcements, as always. The winter parking ban in effect until March 20th, 2026 from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. No vehicles can be parked on the street during that time. If you need a winter parking pass, please contact the Nahant Police Department. If there is a snowstorm, parking ban residents will be notified via the code red system and the information will be posted on our electric signboard, our town Facebook, and our website. We urge residents to sign up for code red alerts and to check those online areas for updated information. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 16th, 2026, in observation of President's Day. Let's see, water, sewer, and trash bills were mailed out on January 30th and are due back by March 1st. If you have any questions about your bill, please contact the Treasurer Collector's Office. Town election nomination papers are now available. Nomination papers for town election are now, in the town clerk's office. Last day to obtain papers is March 4th, 2026. Papers are due back to the clerk by March 6th. For a full list of open seats, visit the town election page at nahant.org. And the annual town census. The 2026 annual town census has been mailed to residents. Resident parking stickers will not be approved without a completed census. For more information, contact the town clerk. Annual dog licenses are due back to the town clerk by April 1st, 2026. Any licenses submitted after April 1st will be charged a $20 late fee. The Charles Kelly Scholarship application is due by April 10th, 2026. Visit the scholarships page at nahant.org for how to apply. The town election is Saturday, April 25th, 2026. Election polling hours will be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Nahant Town Hall. For more information, contact the town clerk or visit the town election page at nahant.org. The annual town meeting is Saturday, May 16th, 2026, beginning at 12:30 p.m. at Nahant Town Hall. For more information, contact the town clerk. And that brings us to new business, where we have a vote to approve in-person early voting hours for the annual town election. And I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the recommendation of the Board of Registrars to opt in to early voting for the annual town election on April 25th, 2026. Early voting will take place in the Nahant Town Hall from April 21st, 2026 through April 23rd, 2026 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? A roll call vote.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Tibbo, aye. Vote is unanimous. We then have a vote to approve a Nahant police officer detail for the annual town election. And I will move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a Nahant police officer detail for the annual town election on Saturday, April 25th, 2026 from 6:45 a.m. and until Final votes have been counted and tallied at the Nahant Town Hall, 334 Nahant Road, Nahant, Mass. 01908.
Seconded.
Seconded. I'll get there. Give me a minute. Any discussion?
None from me.
Roll call vote.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye. Let's see. We have a vote to delegate authority to the town clerk to appoint and assign poll workers as needed for elections in 2026. And I will move to reaffirm that the Board of Selectmen delegates the authority to the town clerk to appoint and assign poll workers as needed for every election in 2026. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye. We now come to a vote to approve adding a town charter change question to the annual town election, and I will move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve and add the following to the annual town election ballot. A vote to amend the town charter by replacing all references to Board of Selectmen or Selectmen with the words select board. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Discussion.
Just a question on the wording here. We're replacing select men with select board. Do we need to take a look at the wording on that? I mean, I'm fine if we want to move forward with this, but
It's already gone through town meeting, Gene Patrick. We don't really have to do
what's that?
It's already gone through town meeting, so
No, it's just the select men usually. Well, I guess select man or select men with select board. In the case, are there instances in that we're replacing select men where it refers to one person on the board versus the board as a whole?
I believe the entire charter uses either select board or select men. So it would cover all. I can double check right now, but
Right. I just didn't want to I think the opposite question is whether we're replacing a reference to an individual select, I guess, man. So that's not
Well, then it would be select board member.
right. Select
Correct.
board member. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Just if we just keep an eye out, and if there's any instances where that would be a problem, we can always change the wording.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
Rob Tibble, aye. And let's see, we have a vote to approve the appointment of the new finance director. And I will gladly move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of Edmund Locke as the new town finance director effective February 11th, 2026. Do I have a second?
Could I second that?
Absolutely, Gene. You made it just in time.
Second.
Okay, so we got a second. Any discussion?
I do just want to talk about the process that we went through. So we posted this position. I have been serving in both roles since July. And so I posted the position. The town received 4 applications. I interviewed all 4 candidates, and Ed was my top choice out of those. So I proudly present him to the board for your approval. And I plan on, continuing in the finance role for a bit as I show him, the accounting system and reporting that we do and things like that. So I'm going to help him in this transition.
That's wonderful. Allison, and I know you've been doing an amazing amount of work in this period, and I'm so excited to have Edmund come in and start helping you on that. I think it's an excellent choice. Gene or Pat, anything?
No, go ahead, Gene.
I think he certainly demonstrated his skills and his efforts as a treasurer collector. And that made that, I don't know if it made it easy, but it made it the right choice, I thought myself.
But,
Excuse my little bit of a gabble here.
here then, and I just wanted to say congratulations, Ed. Well deserved.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the board. Just quickly, if I could just thank Allison, and looking forward to the new challenge and working with the town departments, the individuals here that work at the town hall to continue the process of moving the town forward. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for your vote of confidence. I
We
appreciate it.
wish you the best, Edmund. Anything we can do, let us know.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll come to a roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Tebow, aye. Vote is unanimous. Let's see, we have a vote to approve an FY26 fee schedule with proposed changes. So I'll move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the FY26 fee schedule with the proposed changes from the Inspectional Services Department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Gene. Discussion. I see we have Mr. Baldacci with us today.
Yeah, so I can preface this
Oh,
by
okay.
saying the
Perfect.
board, usually approves the fee schedule at the beginning of the fiscal year, which you've already done. But this additional fee was brought forward by our building commissioner, Rich Baldacci, and it's in regards to inspections of multifamily dwellings. So he's on here. He can speak a little bit more about what this fee will be for. And Rich, take it away.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, there is in the building code, there's a section, a table 110 that gives us guidance on doing inspections for restaurants, for not 1 and 2 family dwellings, but multifamily dwellings, which are 3 and over. We also are responsible for doing places of assembly like restaurants and religious places of worship and child daycare and assisted living. So we worked with the assessing department and we culled a list of buildings that we're responsible to inspect. We issue certificates of inspection every year for renewal of liquor licenses, and this will be in addition to those certificate of inspections. Jen Kraft put together an application for the certificate of inspection, and we just want to get approval for $100 fee for per inspection per building.
Is it still an annual event, the inspections?
It depends on what the use occupancy is. So restaurants are responsible for having a certificate of inspection yearly, and the multifamily dwellings, they have inspections every 5 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rich, I remember maybe 20 years ago, Boston started ordering inspections on fire escapes and the ladders and the balconies for fire escapes, and it caused quite an uproar because it really hadn't been inspected ever. And I don't recall if we've been doing much of this here in Nahant. Do you have any sense of whether we have a history of doing these inspections?
So I developed a letter. Again, it's not my intention to come down hard here, but we want public safety. I've been in contact with Chief Antrim. We've been communicating pretty much every week. And, the certification of exterior means of egress is what you're referring to. So as we see multifamily buildings or other buildings that are using fire escapes, all we're doing is sending out a letter asking those to be certified. So the certification process in the building code is every 5 years, you have a competent person, maybe a registered design professional, such as an architect or an engineer, and they would come out and certify that the fire escape or exterior means of egress is suitable and operational.
Outstanding. All right. Well, this is great.
And,
I'm
If I
very
ask a
happy.
question,
Of course.
um, I was asked for if we require a certificate for whenever an apartment is vacant and then refilled. Is that something? I didn't have an answer to it. I didn't find it in any of the bylaws. If you
Yep.
could help me out with that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. That I don't have the authority to inspect unless work has been done in conjunction with a building permit. But what you're referring to is, I think it's 105 CMR, which is the health code. And that would be, we don't do it in Swampscott. We don't inspect. I think they do it in Lynn, and they don't do it in Marblehead. So it depends on the size of the health department and whether they have the capacity to get out there and do those inspections.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The question on we had the form, the proposed application form circulated to us, and I just wanted to clarify on the form it says fee amount is $100 per unit to be inspected. Is that meant to be per building? That's my understanding of
Yeah. So
Swampscott's.
yeah, good. It's a good question. I didn't notice that. We're not doing it by dwelling unit. We're doing it by building.
By building.
So each building, if there's 2 buildings, then we'll inspect each building. Again, I'm not quite familiar with the list of apartment buildings that will be required to inspect, but it's not our intention to do it by dwelling unit. And
Okay.
this is a draft, so we'll be able to change that.
Yeah, that's good. That would be a big difference, at
Yes.
least with a few of the buildings.
Absolutely.
And then we just, I think Jen had done some research on what the, neighboring communities might charge for this. That was shared with the board too. Some charge just a flat per building fee and some do charge an additional per unit fee. But I think as Rich had stated, we're just proposing the per building fee and we'll just make that small adjustment on the application.
Be good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, Rich, thank you so much for bringing this up, and we look forward to working with you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
So we need a roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Thibault, aye. Motion carries unanimous. And that brings us to a vote to approve the Board of Selectmen omnibus budget and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee. And I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the omnibus budget as presented and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee for their review. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
That's me. So I wanted to start off, I pulled together a PowerPoint as kind of a high level view of how I approached the budget process this year. So I'm going to share that first. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to talk through this a bit first. I'm sorry. So first off, I just want to talk about the preparation for this process. On December 26th, I sent out budget templates to each of the department heads to complete. It had historical spending data on it, as well as the current year budget. And then it was a template for department heads to fill out and send back. I asked those to be back to me by January 20th. Starting on January 20th and through February 2nd, I met individually with department heads to discuss those requests, go over, their requests for any increases. Some of those meetings, I had a couple with several departments. And so I did that for about a week and a half. And then I started aggregating, all of the requests and figuring, and as I spoke to the board last week, that the requests were not going to fit in our normal proposition, 2.5% increase on taxes. And so what I decided to do is I was going to present two budgets to the board. One I termed as a level services budget, and one as an operating override budget. So I'm presenting this first draft of the budget to you tonight, February 11th. It's actually a week earlier than it was presented last year. And since I started here with the town, the budget's always been presented the third week of February to the board. So I just wanted to walk through this presentation first. Let me just put this in slideshow mode so it shows up bigger. All right. So FY27 revenues, 2.5% increase per Proposition 2.5 equates to about $285,000. I'm estimating new growth at around $70,000. I looked at an average over 10 years, and it's about 68,000. We have some new development in town, particularly where the old Coast Guard housing is. So I'm comfortable. I think 70,000 is a conservative number. The water and sewer debt shift is 1.4 million. And this represents the actual principal and interest payments due for our outstanding water and sewer debt. This is actually a decrease from the current fiscal year of about $55,000. The school debt from the FY 2007 school override is paid off in FY 27. So the principal and interest is no longer being carried on the tax rate. In the current year, FY 26, that amount was $295,800. I'm estimating a decrease in the overlay account of $10,000. This is just the amount that's set aside for abatements and exemptions, and will actually vary when we actually go through the tax rate setting process with the DOR in the fall. So, but I'm projecting an estimated decrease of 10,000. State aid, the governor has released her budget. She's proposing a 2.5% increase, which for the town of Nahant is about $30,000. And then I'm estimating about $167,000 addition in local receipts, including for motor vehicle excise, boat excise. This includes, building permits, fees, and those sorts of things. They're also including, it's a $273,000 decrease in free cash. So we have less free cash to use to put towards the town's capital budget like we have historically done. In the current fiscal year, FY 26, we had about $810,000 in free cash that we put towards one-time capital expenditures. For FY 27, we have just over 300,000. So the net decrease in revenues for FY 27 is just over $81,000. So given that we have a net decrease and we have contractually obligated increases for FY 27, that's how I started to develop the level services budget. So I started first with contractual obligations. So for DPW, police, and the fire collective bargaining contracts, There's a 2.5% increase for FY27. And that FY27 is the final year of those contracts. So I'll be renegotiating all of those come the fall time. There's a 3.5% increase in the teacher collective bargaining contracts that I've included. And then I've included a 2.5% increase in non-contract, non-union employees in town, which we've historically done. We've mirrored the other town collective bargaining contract increases. I also did a 2.5% increase in department utility budgets, which we've historically done. The school budget includes an increase of 2 ESPs per special education IEP requirements, as well as an increase in contracted services to cover a new special education director. So the special education director retired last year in the town. I posted the position. It's a part-time position and had difficulty filling a part-time position. So instead, it has contracted services through a company, and that has come at an increased cost. So that's being built into the FY27 budget. There's an 8% increase in special education out of district tuition and a 2.5% increase in tuition to the Swampscott Public Schools. My level services budget includes a 12% increase in health insurance. We've been told by Maya, our health insurance agent, that there's a maximum of a 14% increase. I've included 12% in my budget because the plan is that the town will be offering other options, other health plan options that employees have requested. So we'll continue to offer, the package that we offer now, but we're also going to be offering a limited network plan that will be at a lower premium level. And we're also going to be adding a deductible plan that employees could opt into that, again, is a lower premium level. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of employees, particularly for the current fiscal year that we're in, we had an 18% increase in premium costs. And that was really difficult, for employees to absorb, that increase on their portion. And so I did do a lot of research and take a look at, other options that we could offer. And that's what we're going to do. And hopefully, if employees want to opt into those plans, if it works for them. So the final pricing for all of our insurance premium, FY27 insurance premiums hasn't been finalized yet. We should be hearing within a few weeks, and I may come back to the board if I'm able to revise that number down at all based on the premium rates that we get from Maya. My level services budget also includes a 3% increase in general liability insurance for the town. I am not including an increase or a transfer to the town stabilization fund. Historically, since FY20, we've been transferring $100,000 into the stabilization fund. We did not do a transfer for FY26, and a level services budget for FY27, there's not capacity to do it either. My level services budget also includes minimum payment of debt, principal, and interest. So I just wanted to show this graphic. This is the total level services budget would be 16.9 million. And so this pie chart is just a graphic of kind of how that breaks out by like department category. You can see education is the largest at 30%. Public safety is the next at 22%. Liability and health insurance is the next one at 19% of the whole. And then general government is 9% of that budget. So I'm going to move on to expenses for an operating override. So again, as I said, during the budget process, I had a number of departments come before me with larger needs than usual. And two of those departments were the school department and the fire department. So one, the school department has requested an increase from a 0.37 FTE to full-time ELA math specialist. They also have proposed an increase in professional development budget for the school department. The fire department has put forward adding 4 new full-time firefighters. I also, the fire chief couldn't join us tonight, but I do have a statement from him that after we go through the budget, I'd like to read just so you understand the request, you know, the need for this request. The budget also includes an increase in salaries of 5 non-union, non-contract town employees that currently are below market rates. The town conducted a market or a compensation study in 2024, and that noted it took a look at, you know, similar positions to town positions in neighboring communities. And it noted that, you know, several of our positions are under that market rate. So my proposal is to bring those up to market rate. And those positions include the town clerk, the 2 positions in the library. Oh, sorry about that. The 2 positions in the library. It also includes the treasurer. And it includes the administrative assistant in the building department. So this version of the budget includes increases for those positions. I'm also including an increase of 50 cents per hour for part-time salaries for the Council on Aging, library, and DPW staff. Historically, and in the level services budget, we've only done a 25-cent an hour increase for part-time positions. I'm proposing to increase department utility budgets by 4% over FY25 actual expenditures. The level services budget just did a 2.5% increase over the FY26 budget. And in most cases, those budgeted numbers are not sufficient. So what we've done 2 years ago, we started this utility reserve. So we provided a budget for utility reserve. We've bumped the department utility budgets up by a standard 2.5% per year. And then when departments have spent all the funding in those line items during the year, they've come to me, and we then have used money from the utility reserve to cover those overages. I'm proposing to increase the department utility budgets to at least cover what has historically been paid. And to offset that increase, I'm proposing to decrease the utility reserve amount. The override budget, I'm also including a transfer of $56,000 into the town stabilization fund. So this is the same graphic that I showed before, but it's the override budget, which would be a total of 17.9 million. And so just to compare it to the previous graphic, the changes that would happen on public safety would increase originally from 22% of the budget to 24%. The school budget would actually slightly decrease as part of the whole. It would go from 30% to down to 29%. And the health insurance, liability and health insurance would go down by a percentage point. So very minor changes to the distribution of the monies in an override scenario. This slide is just showing the dollar amount changes by department, given the level services budget and the override budget. So you'll see, the largest increases there are in public safety and education, and that's mainly for the reasons that I stated, the addition of personnel. You can also see that the health insurance number has increased because with the addition of full-time personnel comes additional health insurance costs. So I had a budget for 5 additional individuals that I don't know what kind of health plan they're going to choose. So I'm assuming a family plan, which would come at a cost to the town of $32,000 each. The town picks up 62% share of the health insurance premium. You'll also see that small bump in the stabilization fund. So those are the major differences between the two budgets. So I just want to, review the last time that the town had an operating override. It was back in fiscal year 2020 for $600,000. And that amount included $425,000 in debt pay down related to borrowing that the town did for Storm Riley to fix the damages from that storm. It included a $100,000 transfer into the stabilization fund. This was the first time that a transfer to the stabilization fund occurred. A $25,000 transfer into the OPEB, which is Other Post-Employment Benefits Fund, and a $100,000 increase to the reserve fund, which is budgeted for under the Advisory and Finance Committee. And it's intended for if a department has an unexpected and extraordinary expense during the year, they're able to go before the Advisory and Finance Committee and request funds from the reserve fund. And then there were minimal increases to various department salary and operating budgets, totaling overall the department's $85,000. And to offset some of these increases, the town decreased its budget for workers' compensation and also decreased the budget for debt service. So in FY 2020, the override increased the tax rate by 62 cents per thousand. And based on an average single family home value at the time of just over $700,000, the average tax bill increased by $435. So this slide is showing historically the tax rate for the past few years in town. It's in that last column. That's the tax rate per $1,000 value. And the two highlighted rows on the bottom, the first one is what the tax rate would be for a level services budget. And the second one is what it would be with a $1 million operating override. So you'll see under level services, the tax rate would is estimated to increase by a penny. And with an operating override, the tax rate would increase by 68 cents. So I just, based on a current average single family home value of just over $1 million, for an operating override, the average tax bill would increase by $730. So I pulled this tax rate data, it's current year tax rate data from the Department of Revenue. And I just kind of wanted to put into perspective, what Nahant's tax rate looks like in comparison to neighboring communities. I looked and I ranked them all by their residential tax rate from lowest to highest. So that's what that ranking is on the left-hand side. And you'll see in 2026, Nahant was 49th out of all communities in Massachusetts with a tax rate of $899. You'll notice these neighboring towns, a lot of them have a commercial tax base, and that they charge a different commercial tax rate that they're able to, use in their favor towards their budget, where we do not have that base here. I thought this is an important slide to show. So that's everything I just discussed in the two versions, that's the general fund budget. The town has two enterprise funds, and one is water and sewer, the other one is trash. An enterprise fund, the purpose of an enterprise fund is for it to be self-sustaining. So there's a fee charged for a service, and the fee revenue covers all of the expenses related to those services. So for water and sewer, on the expense side for FY27, again, we budget two positions that are in the DPW under water and sewer. So the FY27 budget includes the 2.5% collective bargaining increase for those salaries. We just received an estimate from the Lynn Water and Sewer Department January 31st. And that amounts to a $4,500 increase for that line. So that's included in the budget. I have not yet heard from MWRA on what our assessment is going to be. So I just estimated a $15,000 increase. I may come back to the board once that's finalized over the next few weeks. And if it happens to be lower, we can, bring down the budget a little bit. I budgeted 2% increase in indirect costs. So we charge the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund for a lot of the things that are done centrally, such as processing payroll, the audit, processing vouchers through accounting, making payments, things like that. So I increased that by 2%. I increased the utility cost by 2.5%. And then there is $30,000 less in retained earnings, which, similar to the general fund side that has free cash, retained earnings on the enterprise side is that undesignated fund balance from a prior fiscal year that's certified by the Department of Revenue and can be used for one-time expenditures. So it's a little bit less than what we've previously used. So just based on all of these expenses, I'm estimating that the water and sewer rates will go up by 3.9%. Oh, sorry, someone's just joining the meeting. Let me. And this would, I have the FY26 water and sewer rates on here. So the water rate would estimate go up by from 1108 to 1139, and the sewer rate would go from 1334 to 1397 per 100 cubic foot. And then just briefly, the trash enterprise or rubbish enterprise budget. We budget 2/3 of a salary on this from the DPW department. So I've included that increase. But the main driver of this enterprise fund is the trash collection contract. Our contract with Waste Management expires on June 30th of this year. I am meeting with a representative from Waste Management tomorrow to see if we can get a 1-year extension on that, because we're a little bit late to the game if we were to procure for new services. I do intend to next fall, if, depending on this 1-year extension, I do plan in the fall to do a full procurement and, see all the services that are out there and what might benefit the town on a cost basis. So right now, I don't know what the increase is going to be for FY27. I'm estimating a 6% increase. And if that's the case, the trash enterprise budget goes up by 6%. The current year trash rate is $429 per single family household. And so the FY27 estimated trash rate will go up to $455. So the next steps are, well, we can walk through the actual omnibus budget. And then once the board, we review that tonight, as well as a draft town meeting warrant that I've sent to the board to take a look at tonight. They'll be sent to the Advisory and Finance Committee. The Advisory and Finance Committee is having its first organizational meeting of the new year tomorrow, February 12th. And then over the next 9 weeks, the committee will meet with department heads to discuss budgets in town meeting articles. What they do is they they determine liaisons for the committee to each of these departments. Those liaisons meet, separately with the department heads, and then the department heads present their budgets at a full committee meeting. The committee has to have their recommendations completed by Friday, April 17th, to send to the printer, because per our charter, we have to have the recommendation book at every residence a week before town meeting. So it has to be there by May 9th. And then town meeting is on May 16th. So that's all. That's the end of the presentation there. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I do just want to read the letter that Austin sent to me today, the fire chief. Hold on a minute. I thought I had it pulled up, but I don't. Bear with me. All right. So he says, to the members of the Board of Selectmen and residents of Nahant, I apologize for not being able to attend tonight's meeting in person. 4.5 years ago, among the hesitations I had applying for the position of fire chief was knowing that the next fire chief would have to take on 2 challenges that require significant local tax resources. Those 2 items are addressing staffing shortages that the fire department is experiencing and making progress on replacing our obsolete and unhealthy fire station. One significant reason for the proposed general override is the fire department seeking more full-time staffing. For the prior 2 decades, I have been a student of the fire service, the town of Nahant, and Nahant's finances, and I do not ask for this increase in staffing lightly. The Nahant Fire Department has been operating with a combination staffing model since 1908. That means that there are a small number of full-time firefighters supplemented by part-time firefighters. This staffing model relies on off-duty full-time firefighters and a sufficient number of part-time firefighters to respond to emergencies immediately when called. Nationally, the number of part-time and volunteer firefighters has been on the decline for decades, and Nahant is not an exception. We have been unable to maintain a sufficient number of trained part-time firefighters. Meanwhile, the roles of the fire department have expanded further, diluting our capabilities and requiring significant and constant training to remain prepared for the hazards we are expecting to respond to. Additionally, decades of documented firefighter injuries and deaths have continually driven operational and staffing standards nationally, and the Nahant Fire Department has not kept pace with these standards. All of this has combined to get us to where we are now. The Nahant Fire Department does not have sufficient staffing to be able to safely extinguish a fire in a low hazard occupancy based upon current national firefighting standards. By National Fire Protection Association standards, a low hazard residential occupancy is defined as a 2,000 square foot, 2-story residential structure with no basement and no exposures. This low hazard occupancy represents a very small percentage of the structures in Nahant. Due to their size, construction, and proximity to exposure, the buildings, the majority of structures in Nahant are classified as medium hazard occupancies, and there are a handful of high hazard occupancies. Despite being the smallest municipality in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of land area, of the 351 municipalities in Massachusetts, Nahant ranks around 50th for density. A community's population density and fire load should be basis for decisions about fire suppression staffing. I look forward to joining as many of your future meetings as necessary to answer questions and address concerns. It is my sincere hope that you will join me in providing this information to the residents of Nahant so they can make an informed decision about the level of fire protection they are willing to fund. Respectfully, Austin Antrim, Fire Chief. So I thought that was important in his absence. I thought that was important to read for everyone to hear for a reason for a big increase in the fire budget.
Allison, I think we should hear that letter a few more times as we go through this process, just because it really needs, it's a message that really needs to be brought home. And I want to make sure everybody hears it.
Okay. So
I
I'm
think it,
now going, sorry, did you?
I think it kind of says it in a couple of sentences here when you're talking about an informed decision.
Mhm.
And I think what Robbie's saying is we need a little bit more time and information in order to make an informed decision.
And I mean, that's why when departments came to me with their budgets, and in particular, the school and fire departments came to me with various iterations of their budgets to, they trimmed back on, things that they really need. I had to put forward two budgets. So it's not my place. I think the residents need to decide those things that are important to them. And I think as we continue through this budget process, and the advisory and finance committee meets with these departments and have them present at their meetings as well, that, the public will understand additional information about these needs. The school department has also made me aware of a potential out of district placement that's not yet determined, but if that is to happen, it's going to be a significant cost increase for the school as well. So I just wanted to make that known at this point. I know there's some representatives from the school department on the call tonight. So I wanted to bring up my spreadsheet that I've shared with the board. It's going to be a little bit difficult, I think, to see on the screen, but are you able to see this? So obviously there's a lot of numbers on here, but what is shown in the middle third of this is the level services budget and comparison to the FY26 budget. And then over on the right-hand side is the override budget. So the numbers that I've included and talked about in my presentation tonight are under the town administrator lines. So here's the level service one, and then here's the override one. And then this column here shows the comparison to FY26, the current year budget. So you can see where there's increases and decreases. And then for the override budget, same thing, where there's increases and decreases. I really took a look at, all departments in totality, and in terms of if there is, if the town is willing to vote on an override, I distributed that among all departments within town. So I really tried to make, all of this work. On the level services side, you'll see this column represents, the difference between what department heads asked for and what I've put into the budget that's before you. And honestly, that was just to make all of the expenditures fit into projected revenues at a 2.5% increase. So I don't know if the board, if you want to go line by line or by department, or how you would like to review this.
Patrick and Jean, your thoughts on going through this?
I'm just fumbling through here. Go ahead, Patrick.
I did have some notes. Let me just take a look.
Mhm.
You give me 1 second here.
Well, just do you would you be comfortable with just asking specific questions so that to rather than have Allison go through the whole thing line by line?
Yeah, we have the copy of this spreadsheet, or at least yeah, I think you
Yes.
sent that out. So
Mhm.
I was looking at it earlier. I'm content to just ask specific questions. um, as needed. Although looking at the screen on my laptop, it's really very difficult to to make
I
out.
know, it's
Yeah.
small.
I can also look at the copy I have offline.
Mhm.
That's what I've got as a offline copy. Gene, are you comfortable with that as far as asking specific questions tonight rather than go through the whole thing line by line?
Yeah, I think that would work well.
Okay.
Because,
So
because
I do just want to mention, right before tonight's meeting, I did send out these final versions to each of the department heads so they'd be aware of what I was presenting tonight. And I did hear back from the planning board, who I did not originally receive a budget template from. And they've asked for a $350 increase to their budget that's not reflected in the spreadsheet before you. So if there is a vote taken tonight to move this budget along to the Advisory and Finance Committee for review, I would ask that it include the additional $350.
Okay. And that was for the planning board?
Yep, for their supplies budget.
Gotcha.
Which it doesn't require any other adjustments to my revenue projections. I've left a small margin for each budget, so there's enough to cover $350.
I do have a question. You mentioned the this potential change to the school budget. That sounded like a larger amount. Did you
Yeah.
say how much that might be, or do we not have a number on that yet?
We do not have a number. The superintendent is here if he'd like to chime in on it. It's something that's currently being discussed now.
That would be the outplacement?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it would happen, part of that cost would occur in the current year.
Oh,
Yeah, and it basically, yeah, this is Rob Lebo, the superintendent. We found out actually just yesterday that a student who has been a Nahant student for a number of years and been in and out of district placement, that the program that they were in, which was a state program, is being shut down as a hospitalized program, and that program is being closed. And therefore, there has to be a new placement. And they're looking at a different placement. This is a 360-day per year residential placement. And we don't know any kind of cost share related to it yet. But if you go to the DESI sheet of what the overall programmatic costs are, it's the 7th highest out-of-district program cost in the state, and it's around $382,000. So it would be a change for whenever the actual move occurs this spring, plus having to account for how we would fund that for next year, which is not included in either level services or the override budget because it was just found out yesterday. That's it in a nutshell. It's obviously a sensitive topic. You can't go into any particular details.
of course.
Bottom line is student deserves the appropriate services, and otherwise than that, I would not probably go in any further detail.
Thank you.
Yeah, so at this point, I don't think that we can include any type of number because we really don't know what it is. But again, we might have to bring another iteration of a budget before the board once additional details are known.
Yeah, there's a meeting occurring later this week with our new contracted special services director and the program that is closing down and the new program. So I'm anticipating some figures as to costs for the remainder of this year, as well as potential costs for next year, maybe by the end of this week, but certainly early next week. I wouldn't think it would take any longer than that to get those numbers together.
Okay. So, uh, Gene, any specific questions that you have for Allison right now on what we have in front of us?
Just trying to put those together. I think that what we've just seen, which is a great presentation, is about as tight gets. My only thoughts on it are if we had to pull money, and I'm not real strong on the accounting end of it, but if we had to pull money, generally speaking, accounting procedures would ask where you're going to draw that money from to fund another budget that has most need. Is is that something you've looked at or that we could look at? For example, one budget may not be as important as the fire department, and the fire department's need is demonstrated by what the chief wrote up.
Yeah.
You
So
know
I
what
think that that's what these budgets capture. Again, the school and the fire department brought forward the greatest need, and these are needs that they've been talking about for a while. So that's why, I've incorporated them into either version of the FY27 budget. I've spoken to all department heads, and while others have requested, small increases to operating expenses, which I've tried to meet, these personnel costs, to me, were the most important and the largest expenses. In terms of additional areas to fund, so obviously our largest revenue base is property taxes, which is why I was looking towards an override. We have $1 million in stabilization. That's the town's rainy day fund. I'm not sure that's something that we should consider tapping into for this. Other than that, there's no additional funding.
I would not. Go ahead, Gene.
No, I was just going to say, no, I started my question by looking at it from that point of view, that there is no more areas to squeeze other than to shift accounts or line items from one budget to another.
Mhm.
And then it's always, well, where you're going to take it from. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yep. And so that I can tell you, in preparing these two versions of budgets, I've spent hundreds of hours working on this to try to move and squeeze and squeeze additional revenues out of local revenue that I feel comfortable with. I've looked at this every which way.
It's obvious. It shows in all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Well, I would not support taking funds from the stabilization account. I'll come right out on that one. And I think, with what Gene just mentioned, I'm looking at the level services budget and saying that if we're going to move money around, it's as if we were going to be shutting down other departments. And I mean, there's just nothing there. So everything that we might consider expanding or improving the various departments and their needs, that's all in the override budget. And if we don't have that override, then we are basically looking, what we have today is what we're going to have tomorrow. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I also just want to make it clear that the departments had come in when I had said that I was planning on presenting, a level services budget and override budget. The initial override budget was much larger. And I knew that the town was not going to have an appetite for that. So I worked very vigorously with departments to, reconsider their requests, obviously, particularly with school and fire. And what's on the table is really kind of what fit into, you know, that $1 million override and is what is immediately necessary in terms of the department head's eyes.
Yep. Patrick or Jean, anything else before we vote?
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, thank you for all the effort you put into this. I think, you know, it meets it definitely prioritized the needs over the wants, and uh, it does, you know, it does represent, you know, level services. You know, we've been talking about this for a while now, is that, you know, we have to live within the Prop 2.5 restrictions without an override, and so we have to. This is a very responsible budget in that scenario, and then we can go to the voters and through the finance FinCom process and make sure that we can deliver something that the voters will be receptive to. So hopefully we can work through that. We've got 9 weeks to do it in, and looking forward to the debate.
So Allison,
Mhm.
what we're being asked to do is choose between one of the two budgets.
No, nope. So what I would propose to the board is sending along both versions of this budget to the Advisory and Finance Committee to continue these discussions. And then at town meeting in May, when we come to the article for the omnibus, which these all fall under, they'll basically be your level services budget, and then it will also state, and contingent upon an override for these certain areas, the budget would be higher. If the town approves an override at town meeting, that then has to go to ballot for voting. So we would, Diane's still on here, and we haven't had this discussion yet, but obviously town meeting is taking place after our annual election. So we would have to look, if the override passed at town meeting, we'd have to have another election in June.
Thank you. That's the answer I was looking for.
Is this their first override since we changed the date of the election?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Slightly different scenario than previous ones.
Yep.
So are we ready to vote?
I am.
Yes.
Patrick? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to amend the original motion to include that $350 for planning board. So I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the omnibus budget to include an additional $350 for planning board supplies as presented, and send the omnibus budget to the Advisory and Finance Committee for their review. Do I have a second?
Second.
We've had discussion. Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Tibble, aye. Vote is unanimous. Thank you so much, Allison. You've really outdone yourself. What a tremendous amount of work you've put into this. Let's see, we have a vote to open and close the annual town meeting warrant and send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee. And I will move to the open. I move the Board of Selectmen vote to open the annual town meeting warrant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Well,
Gene
so
Canty, aye.
you want to walk through the warrant first?
Oh, I'm
before
sorry.
voting on it?
I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead. Yep, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I just brought it up on the screen, and maybe we can walk through this article by article. A lot of these are recurring articles that we see year over year, so I think we can go through this relatively quickly. Article 1 is a standard transfer article that is on the warrant every year. It allows us to transfer, budgeted funds in the current fiscal year, so for FY26, between salary and operating budgets if needed. We can also, another way that we also deal with this is a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen at the end of June, which is what we've historically done to do the same kind of thing. So a lot of times we don't even have a vote on this at town meeting. Article 2 is additional compensation for the town clerk. It's a vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 19K, which provides an extra $1,000 stipend to a town clerk who completes and receives certification as a Massachusetts municipal clerk. Our town clerk has achieved that. And so by accepting this article, the town would be able to pay her a stipend of $1,000. Article 3 is prior year bills. This is a standard article. There's bills that pop up throughout the fiscal year that were from a prior fiscal year, and the town cannot legally pay those unless it's approved at town meeting. Article 4 is the salary and classification plan. This appears every year on the warrant too. It shows all the full-time and part-time positions in town along with salary ranges. And again, these have been adjusted historically for the 2.5% or 3% increase that's been approved for salaries. So this is standard. And then Article 5 is compensation for elected positions. And so this is specifically the salary for the town clerk, the constable, and the Board of Selectmen. So while the vote for the town clerk salary is here, that also appears as part of the omnibus under the town clerk salary. So Article 6 is going to be the big one, is the omnibus, which what I just walked through will be presenting, you know, and however it gets finalized through these next 9 weeks. But I propose that we're presenting 2 budgets as part of this article. Article 7 is the FY27 water and sewer enterprise budget that I spoke about earlier. And Article 8 is the trash budget for FY27. Those always have separate articles for vote. Article 9, it has been a standard article. It's to designate trash retained earnings for cleanup of the compost area. We've historically dedicated between $30,000 and $35,000 to that. This year, we actually had a little bit more in retained earnings from the trash enterprise. So I'm proposing putting $50,000 towards this. Article 10, revolving funds. This is a standard article that we vote on every year, and it's to fix the maximum amounts that can be spent out of the various revolving funds in town, you know, including recreation and council on aging. And so these are, a revolving fund is something where a fee is charged and then related services are paid out of that. So it just sets, the zoning board of appeals has a revolving fund as well as conservation. So it sets those maximum amounts. Article 11 has been standard for a number of years. It's to do a transfer to the OPEB trust that I've included in both versions of the budget. We've historically done a $25,000 transfer into OPEB. And while the town is under no obligation from the state right now to fully fund OPEB costs, it could happen. So that's the reason why we're setting aside these funds. Article 12, we've historically had a paving article. In prior years, we've borrowed money. We've also dedicated some free cash to this. We do not have enough in free cash to dedicate to paving. So I'm proposing to borrow the money in FY27, and $200,000 is the same amount that we authorized for the current fiscal year as well. So this borrowing combined with whatever we receive in Chapter 90 funding will be the paving budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Article 13 is new. So this is a proposed borrowing for drainage work in the White Way area. The town just went out to bid for this work. And Zach has been leading this charge. So we received bids that had base bids and a number of alternates attached. The lowest bid came in at 1.1 million for all the base bids and alternates, which we can't fund. So I've asked Zach, what his thoughts were on, what we should be funding and what we could, capture a lot of the project. We already have 260,000 from a prior drainage borrowing still remaining. And so I'm proposing borrowing additional 300,000 in order to do most of this project. Article 14 is a standard article we've had for MWRA. This just authorizes the town to borrow up to $500,000 through the MWRA at 0 interest. As you recall, we've done this authorization for a number of years, and the prior authorizations we are using to fund the town's water meter replacement project, which just went out to bid today. So that project is moving along, and that we're funding through the MWRA 0% interest. So this is just to allow another authorization if and when, we need it. Article 15 is new. As you know, the town is currently undergoing a feasibility study for public safety building. We're well underway with that study. We've gone through a site analysis, a needs analysis, and we're now going through a concept design for either combined public safety building or individual new fire and police stations. So this article, it doesn't have a dollar attached to it yet because I don't know what the dollar is, but it would be once the feasibility study is done, which it's scheduled to be done in March. We would want to borrow money for designer services for what the recommendation is. So when the architect is finished with the feasibility study in March, they will be making a presentation to the board in a public presentation, so for the residents too, and describe the process that we've gone through. Both chiefs have been very much involved in all of this and all of the details that have gone into it. And we're going to present all of that hopefully, in another month or so. Article 16 is standard. It's just the Chapter 90, just allowing the town to accept Chapter 90 money from the state for paving purposes. Article 17 is new. And this was something that was spoken about in relation to the 3A MBTA regulation. And I've been working with Jeff Lewis, alternate member of the planning board, on researching and how the town could develop an affordable housing trust. So he's done a lot of research. We've met with other towns' trusts to kind of understand how they operate and work. And we're now starting to draft a bylaw that would, if this article was voted on, would implement a new bylaw to establish this trust. So you will be hearing over the next few weeks about, details behind why this trust is something that we think we need in town, and to be able to provide an option to help fund affordable housing. So stay tuned for that. Article 18 is the regular CPC article. I don't have final grant recommendations yet. They're meeting on a weekly basis to go over grant applications, and they'll make a final recommendation that will then include in the warrant. Article 19, I was asked by the planning board to include this on the warrant. And it's to revise the zoning bylaw regarding wireless communications. My understanding is that this has come out of the recent discussion with the cell phone tower, and there's an application in to change the equipment on that tower, and the planning board chair has asked me to add this to the warrant. So they'll obviously have more background on this forthcoming. And then we received 2 citizens petitions. The first one is to prohibit the use of SGARs in rodenticides. And that the citizens came to me first. I advised them to put in a citizens petition. They worked with Dan Script, our town council, to draft the language for this article. And so that's the first citizens petition. The second one, I wasn't aware of until it came into the town clerk's office. It is to allow transferability of parking stickers. So I've added that to the warrant. And then the last one article is continuing committees, which is a standard article that we have to reauthorize committees for the next fiscal year. And that's
Okay.
the whole warrant.
Thank you for that. I believe the motion to open the warrant has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Tibble, aye. We then now have a motion to close the warrant. And I move the Board of Selectmen vote to close the annual town meeting warrant and send to the Advisory and Finance Committee for their review. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Tibble, aye. Brings us to ongoing business, Allison.
Yes. So I was just going to give another update on the CPC applications that I had put in. As I mentioned in previous meetings, I put 3 CPC applications in. They're continuations of previously approved projects. So this past Monday at the CPC meeting, I spoke on 2 of them. One of them was to request funding to pay an unpaid bill that I was just made aware of at the beginning of this fiscal year, and it was for the open space master plan that was never paid. And so it was just more of an administrative error where at last town meeting, those unspent funds were swept into the CPC's reserve. I've asked the CPC to refund it so I can pay this outstanding bill. And so I spoke on that on Monday night, and they seem favorable. The second thing that I spoke of was the handicap ramp at Town Hall. So this project has received funding a number of years. We've spent a little bit on architectural services. Richard Smith, who's done a lot of work for the Town Hall and the library, has developed a plan to redo the ramp. And he was on the meeting on Monday night with CPC to discuss, what that was. And he's asked a contractor for a quote, and that's come in above what's available for CPC. So that's why I put in a request for additional funding. Again, this is a long-standing project that the CPC wants to see, I think, get done. So I think they're favorable on that as well. My third application, as we spoke about the Little League lighting, originally the CPC was going to discuss that at their meeting on the 23rd, but the original applicant wasn't able to attend. So that'll be discussed on March 2nd at the CPC meeting. So a representative from the Little League will be attending that meeting, as well as myself and Zach Taylor. So we'll discuss that at the CPC meeting on March 2nd. So that's the update on the CPC applications. I also wanted to tell the board that after our meeting last week and we spoke about reconvening the Rights of Way Committee, I did reach out to the 3 members of that committee, and we've set up a meeting. We've set up, we're going to meet on March 10th to talk about, some of the work that they have already done and how we want to move forward. So I did just want to mention that that group is reconvening per the board's charge. So I'll be reporting back on our process on that. And then I also wanted to mention to the board that the town will be working with a new audit firm. So the town has previously used Clifton Larson for its audit services for as long as the number of reports that are in my office. I don't know the number of years, but it's probably been at least 20. When I reached out to them this year to start our audit process, they expressed to me that we had fallen off their radar and that it would be difficult for them to complete an audit for us by June 30th of this year. I did ask, for a proposal on a 3-year contract, which they did provide to me, but in the meantime, I sought out prices from other audit firms, and I've chosen to go with another audit firm for our FY25 audit, as well as it's a 3-year contract, so FY25, 26, 27. The name of that company is CBiz. It was originally Powers and Sullivan. That was bought out by Markham, and then Markham became CBiz. So they're very well known state and local government auditors. And I'm very much looking forward to working with them. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Other than that, I think that's all I have for my report.
You've given us a lot of information tonight, so thank you so much. And I hope that your vacation is at least as good as everything that you've done in preparation to go.
Thank you. There's still a lot to be done.
Yeah.
Again, as I mentioned, the Finance Committee does have a meeting tomorrow night that I will be attending, and they're going to start diving right into, what the board is handing off to them. So.
Okay. And you've mentioned that we'll be in good hands in your absence.
Yes. So in my absence, again, I'll be away from the office starting, Monday's the holiday. So starting next Tuesday, the 17th. I'll be gone through the 27th. I'll be back in the office on March 2nd. In my absence, I've asked the police chief, Tim Furlong, to stand in my place. If there's any, emergency, he can be contacted. I'll be reachable. So please feel free to contact me if, if there's something that I should be concerned about or know about. And then I'll be back with a sunburn on March 2nd.
Well, we'll do our best not to interrupt. Thank you, Allison. That brings us to citizens' comment. Anyone would like to offer their thoughts on an issue they consider important, please raise your hand and so you will be heard. Hearing and seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion made.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
That's it. Okay. Roll call vote.
Shane Canty, aye.
Pat O'Reilly, aye.
And Rob Thibault, aye. Thank you all. And have a pleasant evening. Thank you so much.
And just a reminder, because we met earlier, our next meeting won't be until the first week in March. So.
Okay.
All right.
Nice break on this side too.
All right.
Yes.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, Allison.